A high-resolution, slow zoom shot of the full moon against a pitch-black star field. It looks beautiful, silent, and dead. We look at it every night. It is the most familiar object in our sky, the silent companion of the Earth, the ruler of our tides, the light in our darkness. We believe we know what it is, a rock, a dead, dusty sphere born from a violent collision billions of years ago. A natural satellite locked in a cold gravitational dance. But what if we are wrong? What if the object hanging over our heads is not a rock at all? What if it is a shell, a camouflage, hiding a structure so vast and so ancient that our minds struggle to comprehend its purpose? This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a paradox found in the data of our own space agency. And it is a story found in the oldest, most fragmented memories of the human race. Today, on 0.Nor, we are not just looking at the moon. We are listening to the terrifying sound it made when we hit it, and we are reading the forbidden texts that claim to remember a time before it was there. Act 1. The Bell. The year is 1969. Humanity has achieved the impossible. We have set foot on another world. But the Apollo missions were not just about flags and footprints. They were about science. During the Apollo 12 mission, astronauts Pete Conrad and Bean performed an experiment that would haunt NASA scientists for decades. They returned to their command module, and then they jettisoned the Lunar Module, the Intrepid. They deliberately crashed it back onto the surface of the moon. The goal was to test the seismic sensors they had left behind. They wanted to see how the moon's crust would react to an impact. They expected a thud, a short, sharp shockwave that would dissipate in minutes, just like an earthquake on Earth. What they got was a ringing. The shockwave did not stop. It built. It reverberated. For 55 minutes, the moon vibrated. Maurice Ewing, a director of the seismic experiment, famously told the press, "It rang like a bell." But it got worse. During Apollo 13, they repeated the experiment with a much heavier section of the Saturn V rocket. The impact was equal to 11 tons of TNT. This time, the moon rang for 3 hours and 20 minutes. The vibrations traveled 25 miles deep. This is physically impossible for a solid, rocky planetoid. If you hit a solid rock with a hammer, it goes thud. If you hit a hollow metal sphere with a hammer, it rings. This single data point broke the standard model. It suggested that the moon is not a solid ball of rock, but a rigid outer shell covering a hollow or honeycombed interior. A high-resolution, slow-zoom shot of the full moon against a pitch-black star field. It looks beautiful, silent, and dead. And the density mystery confirms it. The Earth has a density of 5.5 grams per cubic centimeter. The moon, only 3.34. Where is the rest of the mass? Why is it so light? NASA scientist Dr. Gordon MacDonald stated it bluntly in the 1960s. It would seem that the moon is more like a hollow than a homogeneous sphere. But if it is hollow, it cannot be natural. Planets do not form as hollow shells. Physics does not allow it. If the moon is hollow, someone built it. And if someone built it, when did it arrive? Act 2. The time before the moon. We assume the moon has always been there, that it watched the dinosaurs rise and fall. But the lore of humanity tells a different story. In the ancient libraries of Alexandria, vanished knowledge spoke of a time called Procylene. The word literally means before the moon. Aristotle and Plutarch wrote of a group of people living in the highlands of Arcadia in Greece. They were called the Arcadians, and they were proud of their lineage. They claimed their ancestors had occupied the land before there was a moon in the sky. This is not an isolated myth. Halfway across the world, in Bolivia, symbols found at the ancient site of Tiwanaku speak of a time roughly 12,000 years ago when the satellite arrived. But the most chilling account comes from the oral traditions of the Zulu people in Africa. The shaman Credo Mutwa, a keeper of the zero-point lore of his people, told the story of the moon's arrival. The legend says the moon was not always here. It was brought here by two brothers, two watchers, named Wawane and Impanku. They stole the moon from a great fire dragon in the sky, and they emptied out its yoke until it was hollow. Then they rolled it across the universe and parked it in orbit around the Earth. The legend says that when the moon arrived, the planet screamed. The gravitational shift caused cataclysms. The seas rose. The world was drowned. The Great Flood began. Does this sound familiar? A hollow sphere, arriving 12,000 years ago, triggering a global flood? It matches the timeline of the Younger Dryas. It matches the destruction of Atlantis. It matches the NASA seismic data. The lore is not a fairy tale. It is a memory of a planetary engineering event. But if it is an engineered object, surely we would see the evidence. Surely we would see the girders, the metal, the structure. The terrifying truth is, we do. We just haven't been looking close enough. Act 3. The armor. Look at the craters on the moon. There are millions of them. Some are small. Some, like the Bailey crater, are almost 200 miles wide.
A high-resolution, slow-zoom shot of the full moon against a pitch-black star field. It looks beautiful, silent, and dead. An asteroid that big, hitting a planet with the force of 1,000,000 nuclear bombs, should punch a hole dozens of miles deep. It should shatter the crust. But it doesn't. The craters on the moon are suspiciously shallow. Even the widest craters have flat bottoms, rarely exceeding 4 miles in depth. Why? What stops a mountain-sized rock from penetrating deeper? The spaceship moon theory suggests a simple answer: armor. Beneath the layer of dust and crushed rock, there is a hull. A hull made of a material so tough, so impenetrable, that even the largest asteroids cannot break it. And we know what that material might be. In the 1970s, samples of lunar rock brought back by Apollo revealed shocking anomalies. They found pure titanium, they found brass, they found mica, and they found uranium-236, a radioactive isotope that does not exist in nature. It is a byproduct of nuclear waste. And then there is the rust. In 2020, data from India's Chandrayaan-1 orbiter found hematite on the moon. Rust. Rust requires oxygen and water. The moon has neither, unless the hull is leaking. But the final and most impossible zero point is the math. We take solar eclipses for granted. The moon perfectly covers the sun. But do you know the odds of this happening by chance? The moon is exactly 400 times smaller than the sun, and by a staggering coincidence, it is exactly 400 times closer to the Earth. This creates the perfect geometry for a total eclipse. Isaac Asimov, the famous science writer, called this the most unlikely coincidence imaginable. There is no astronomical reason for this to happen. None. Unless it was placed there. Unless the orbit was calculated, calibrated to the meter. Conclusion: the Watcher. So what is it? In a previous investigation, we explored the Black Knight satellite, a 13,000-year-old probe monitoring our planet. But what if the Black Knight is just a toy? What if the moon is the true sentinel, a megastructure parked in our orbit to stabilize our axis, to create our tides, and perhaps to seed life itself? Or is it a base? Recent Pentagon reports confirm that objects, tic-tacs, spheres, cubes, are swarming our skies with impunity. We ask, where do they come from? Deep space? Other dimensions? Perhaps the answer is closer than we think. Perhaps they are not visiting, they are simply commuting, launching from the hollow metallic world that has been watching us for 12,000 years. The next time you look up at the moon, do not see a rock. See it for what the evidence suggests it is. A silent, hollow ship. And the engine is still humming. If you believe that the official story is cracking, subscribe to 0 Point Lore. We are building the archive of the impossible, and we want to hear your theory. If the moon is an artificial base, do you think the owners are still home? Let us know in the comments below.